IDEAMAPS, which is an umbrella group that covers multiple projects. This phase of the project is called IDEAMAPS data ecosystems. And for you to get to understand the problem, you want to look at history on our left. What characters do we see? We have one area that is very suburb-like, a very green area, and just across the fence, a simple fence, we have an informal settlement. So these are the challenges that we are trying to map. And it's estimated that 1 in 4 Africans will live in a slum by the year 2030, which is 4 years to come. And with that information, we know and we understand about how rural-urban migration works. Specifically in Kenya, the first landing point is usually at an informal settlement. If you have not, if you don't have maybe enough money to get to a new place, a good place, you always land in informal settlements. And globally, 1 billion people are estimated to live in informal settlements. So the photo on the left, the top left, that is Kibera slum, and this is a golf course next to it. Kibera slum is one of the largest slums in Africa. Also, the one below is Kibera from Langata side, which is a posh area, and then bordered by an informal settlement. So we are trying to understand where are these slums and informal settlements located, because ideally we tend to rely on existing data, but the informal settlements keep growing day by day, and it's hard to keep up. So we also need to understand what are the main priorities for these communities. What do they need? What do they want? And then how can we use innovative technologies to support these changes? So we have characters that we understand informal settlement. So we have overcrowding, we have poor garbage disposal. So this photo is in Nigeria. The top and the middle top, the top right and the middle or bottom those are in Nigeria, and then the rest are from Kenya. And you get to see that the characters are almost the same. Different places, but the characters are the same. Poor drainage is also a big factor. So this is where IDEAMAPS comes in. So IDEAMAPS in full is integrated deprived area mapping system. And the idea was, the main objective is to co-create integrated data ecosystems that enables routine and accurate mapping of slums, informal settlements, and other deprived areas specifically. First, low and middle income cities. The pilot cities were in Nairobi, where in Nairobi we did 2 informal settlements, that is Stellenbosch and Uganda. And then in Lagos, we had the city of Lagos and Kenya in Nigeria. So the most expensive way of mapping is the field mapping. And we have come to understand that it needs a lot of resources to send people to the field, because it doesn't take 1 day or 2 days, it might even take months to collect this data. Another approach we have is census and survey. So census and survey data, we get them in regular intervals, but sometimes this takes too long. And we know that in informal settlements, these things change quite quickly. In other instances, we find that countries have not done census in a long time. Another option is digitizing imagery, which we are familiar with. And then the final one is computer modeling. But IDEAMAPS wants to integrate all these 4 into one, so that we are able to have something that is quite robust. We have the 3 objectives. So we have to engage multiple stakeholders. So we don't do this alone. We ensure that we involve the community, we involve experts, we involve researchers, we involve every person in one room, so that we come together and discuss this challenge. And then we also want to support the government. So the city governments have a big challenge, especially when it comes to capacity. We find that we may have unskilled labor that is within these institutions. And then finally, it's also to support this community by enhancing the capacity to use data and to collect data. So this is how the cycle looks like. So we have the academic, the community. So this is the stakeholders that we are putting together, and they are all contributing to developing the platform. So ideally, at the end, this platform is going to be used by the community, used by the researchers, used by the government, the local and the national government, and the private sector as well. So the pilot cities, like I said, Nairobi, Lagos, and Kano. We have already done this first phase, and now we have moved to the second phase, which covers 7 more cities. And this has been a total of 10 cities come together. So let's talk about the participatory action research. So we have known, and in fact, ONDTZ has actually quite talked about how they have done. And you could see even on the video the participatory approach where you're doing participatory mapping with the community. They identify these assets from a map, and you'll be able to digitize and understand this information better. So for our first participatory action research 1, PR1, this was subdomains of deprivation. So we went to the community and we asked them, what do you consider important to you? Right? So because we might think that they need water, right? We might think that they need electricity. And something that will shock you later on is you realize that what you think they need is not necessarily what they want. So the first one is informal and insecure tenure, basically meaning that they don't have titles to the lands they live in. So they are more scared that they will be moved one day by the government, just comes and decides this is not your land anymore, or a private developer comes, which happens quite often. So those are some of these subdomains that they had listed. And if you look closely, I don't think you can see anywhere where they say they need water or they need something that we normally think they need. So we have this scale that we developed. So the informal settlements are characterized by irregular settlement layout. So we have buildings that are built in any manner. And then another character is they are small and dense. These are very tiny buildings that are basically one person just lives in. And then we have areas like in Nigeria where the informal settlement is built on water, so that you just suspend your building and you live there. And on the other side, you can see we have the regular patterns, we have the large, spacious areas, and then we have a very we have greenery in certain areas. So we went to the community and we were able to give us some of the information. So we provided them with a list for them to rank, and they were able to rank this list. And then you get to understand now the charts that I had shown previously. Then we followed by a photo voice activity. So a photo voice activity, basically you give cameras to the community. They go and take photos of their day-to-day life. So they take photos of what they think is important to them. So we then got now to identify. For instance, on this chart, we are able to see that they have shown us the irregular settlement layout and created an exhibition so that they are able to come and see and compare between the communities the different photos. Then we did a first stakeholder engagement. So we developed, from this information, we developed models. So the model was called morphological informality. So morphology, of course, is the patterns. And then we get to bring stakeholders together, and they're able to validate this model. So the model you can see on the right, it has either an informal settlement or not an informal settlement. So that was a binary kind of model. The community then complained and said there needs to be somewhere in between. So we had to change the model approach, and we had three. We now have three levels. So we have the low, medium, and high. So that came out of the engagement. Then we had the participatory mapping exercise. So ideally, just similar to what LGTV did, we went to the community with maps, and they were able to identify points around their area, and we were able now to even give them data collection tools to now go and collect these points, the GPS locations for these points and their names, and we were able to collect over 600 points within the two communities. The first, this is now after the first participatory mapping. Now you're able to see that they have, so the brown ones, you can see are water points. So we have plenty of water points within these communities. That's why they don't consider it water access as a problem to them. Korogosho is a very dense slum. In less than 2 kilometers square, there are 100,000 people living in it. So that you can imagine how many people live within that small area. So in Viwandani as well, Viwandani is an informal settlement next to an industrial area. So this has a lot of movements because people come in and go, depending on if you get employed close to the informal, to the industrial area, then that is the first point that you consider to live in. Similarly, we were able to map, and you could see clearly that there is plenty of water points as well. Then we did the third model validation. So we went to the community as well after the model has been developed. So we had one model at that point. We went, so PR3 had only morphological informality. But then when we went back, then for PR4, we had now 3, which is morphological informality, road access deprivation, and accumulated waste. So morphological informality and road access deprivation relies on OSM data. We get the building footprints and we get the roads network from OSM. And then the accumulated waste is a model that is relying on Google Street View image. So this is a machine learning model, a computer vision model rather. Then the validation results are usually used back to developing, at improving the model. Then we had the citywide model validation. So this one entailed community mappers, experts, different OSM communities, so that we are able to now cover the entire of Nairobi and validate the model. So we had now 5 models at this point. So we had, in addition, we had emergency obstetric care and a flood hazard model. So emergency obstetric care access basically means areas that have access to or are close to a facility that offers emergency obstetric care to expectant women. Then we also had another cross-sectoral workshop. So then we now invite the larger experts to even policymakers so that they can come in and look at the progress of the project. Okay. All right. So this is the cyclic process as well. I was to talk more about morphological informality, but since I don't have time. So ideally, when the model was designed, let me just go through it quickly. Ideally, when the project was designed, morphological informality was the first model that actually identifies informal settlements based on the two factors: small and dense settlement. So ideally, the size of the building as well as the irregular settlement layout. So whenever you have a building footprint, you're able to extract the 2 of these, and you'll be able to identify an informal settlement. So we have low. So the model is classified into 3: low, medium, and high. So depending on how this model shows, so you're able to see that in low areas, there is patterns, there are roads, there is road connections, there is large buildings, and there's some green space within it. Medium would find that these are areas that have a pattern, but not necessarily large, not necessarily large buildings, but there seems to be like there's a plan, and then on irregular, but they have green space within them, and then high definitely is just the informal settlements built. So that is how the model looks like. I will just skip to the last slide so that you'll be able to scan, you'll be able to view the platform. So if you just scan if you scan on it, then you'll be able to view the platform, or you can go to ideamapsecosystem.org. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Unfortunately, because of our time, the chairperson, because we need to hurry down to the auditorium for the fellows' talks. So, thank you so much, everybody. Let's just go down to the auditorium. If you want to ask your questions, you can find it. But we need to go to the auditorium like now.
What about this one? This is Abdulaziz. It's Abdulaziz. I don't think he presented this yet.
What's the name? Show me the name. It is the one you have 2 minutes of.
That's why I'm confused. Because just here,
What am I doing the next one?